In the last couple of vlogs, we showed you and told you about how we conducted children's rights research in Western Sahara. And this vlog is dedicated to showing you how we aim to implement the results of our research. I guess this is always a difficult part about research, but I think even more so when talking about unrecognized states, because everything is extremely politicized. So even though it's really important for our project and for us that our research results have an impact, it's hard to even begin to find a language that's neutral enough to be able to talk about these research results. And originally, we had planned to travel back to Western Sahara and talk to people about our research results, maybe organize workshops or something like that. But because of COVID-19, that hasn't been possible yet either. And we're not quite sure when it will be. So instead of showing you footage of us traveling back to Western Sahara, we talked about all these uncertainties in a Zoom meeting, and you can have a look at the behind the scenes of our research project to that meeting.
Yeah, so it's challenging. I didn't expect this beforehand, but the fact that we're doing these two case studies, so on the one hand the Moroccan side and the Algerian side on the other hand, that gives us a little bit of an extra challenge because, as you know, these two sides are not really friendly. And you kind of want to reach them both, right? You want both of these, the authorities especially on both sides, you want them to be interested in how can we improve the children's rights situation, what can we do, what can we learn from your study, etc. In the case of the Moroccan side, of course, we have already taken steps and we have this report. We're going to be printing and sending that out hopefully later this week. What I find very challenging is that often I think the conflict itself for people and the political interest related to the conflict trumps the interest of children and what's best for children. It's just more important to, let's say, win the war first, and then we'll think about the children. And it's, of course, it's like a really long-lasting situation. So you see that people are like, okay, there's a global health crisis, so we'll think about children's rights next year. But first, we have to fix this health crisis. And I understand this thinking. But still, children need good education and safety and all these things, even if there's a health crisis. Another thing is that someone told us the fact that in the Algerian case, we rely quite heavily on what children said and what children told us. They don't think you should ever do that as a researcher because children lie or you shouldn't take children that seriously. And I also discussed it with this other researcher who spent a lot of time in the camps. Like, she wasn't surprised with the idea that maybe children are not regularly listened to, or the idea that we might have of, children are reliable informants. That's, of course, one of the things we kind of assume in our study, that on the whole, of course not, but no one is a reliable informant, always. That if you ask a group of children all individually and they all kind of say the same thing, that you believe that is actually true. I actually think, in my experience, that children are more truthful and better sources of information than adults because they don't have other political interests, or they don't understand necessarily what the research might resort to, or, So, yeah. But if people locally feel that, this is just nonsense because it's what kids said and it's just a kid's story, that might be really hard to then have an impact. So that's another concern. I guess those are the two main concerns that we have.
Ideally, we want to go back to Western Sahara and share our results with the people there. But is that even possible? We still don't know whether the COVID-19 restrictions will allow us to travel.
We're going to think about also really how to implement in the camps, in the different camps. So travel around and go to all the 5 camps and maybe invite children and parents together. And ideally, we would invite children to speak to parents and teachers and share their experiences and share what they think. I think that could be potentially really powerful, but also very vulnerable. because then you put the children in a very vulnerable position. So, or maybe young adults who they know are not children anymore, but can reflect back on a few years ago when they were children. So I'm not sure. This is something we still have to discuss and think about how to do that best, so that they can tell about, their experiences with the fighting, for example, or even what it's like for them to be hit, even if it's light spanking, or because also once we leave, then how are they going to continue? I think the best way is to keep that dialogue also between adults and children, to keep listening to them, how do you experience that? Or if you change something and say, is this now better for you? Or the whole dialogue thing might also help with non-violent resolution of any conflict between adults and children, and between children, of course. Basically, just learning to speak about things is kind of helpful, I guess, with these things.
So, what is the next step? What shall we do with these results?
I was thinking that for impact purposes, we should try and we were trying to see who we could co-submit with, so who are submitting this UPR together with us. But so far, of course, we only have pro-Sahrawi organizations through our contacts with those NGOs. And I think it would be really nice to see if we can have some kind of Moroccan human rights organization to sign on as well. I think it would be much better balanced. I just really don't want to be part of any side's propaganda. In general, it would be super nice if we can get human rights organizations from both sides of the conflict to work together for a shared purpose.